Happy Monday, and may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be
with you. Yeah, well, Harrison and I are Star Wars nerds,
Yes.
so we have to throw that out there. Really quickly, before we get kicked off, the views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those, the SCV, GEC, nor any division, brigade, camps, or other subsidiaries. Strictly those of us that are expressing them. So, good evening, everyone. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. We are back with SCV Chat. So glad to have Moose back. Because
trying not to be transitioning from being a poor broke college student into a poor broke business owner is a lot more difficult than I thought. And all of last week was spent trying to get my business ready for launch, hopefully launching sometime in the near future. There's still a couple of stuff I need to work out, but I will officially graduate this weekend and be moving on to life as an adult, and probably more taxes to the federal government because they can't not try to get more money out of me. Oh gosh, did you know how expensive it is to start a business?
Yes.
Yes,
I do.
Gosh, I went to my father the other night and he was like, "Hey, what you getting for supper?" I was like, "Whatever you buying."
Free water and bread.
Because I have $0 once again. It's quite startling how I'll look up and have zero money after paying for all the stuff that you need. I didn't know there was a thing called business license. The lovely $400 I needed to set up my business with a lovely LLC here in Mississippi. I can cut some corners because of, my profession. I got to design my own logo and stuff like that, and design my own website, which looks awful right now. I still have a lot of work to do on that, but my gosh, it sucks being an adult. I always knew it did. These past couple of years have given me a glimpse, but it just gets worse. I paid for a bill. I had no idea where it came from. I had an adult tax. I had an air tax. My gosh, the taxes I have paid, the bills I've paid this past week. Oh, it's been awful. If I look sad, it's because of allergies, I promise, but mainly because there's a fly leaving my wallet right now saying, well, there's nothing in here for us, boys.
Yeah, I would say it gets better, but then you add kids into the mix, and Charles, I know you can attest to this. They ain't cheap.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, guess what? Guess what's due this week? Division reunion.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'm on the committee for it. Even I was like, oh, no.
2 days left to register if you're going to eat.
I'll register the last day.
Hey, that's
looking at the last
event, right? Hey, really quickly, speaking of reunions, did y'all know we have 72 days, 4 hours, 48 minutes, and 37 seconds to the kickoff of this national reunion?
Not exactly, but that is impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only reason why I know that to the exact is because of the wonderful website, the 131scv.org, the official website for this upcoming national reunion. Just wanted to remind everybody that if you are not registered, to get registered by June the 1st, because that is the cutoff date for meals for reunion. We did get an email earlier reminding everybody. I'm trying to pull it back up. I accidentally closed out of the email a second ago. Wanted to remind everybody that they are being close to having all the rooms booked at the hotel, and that the History Museum and Bourbon tours are sold out. But so on here, Bourbon, Kentucky Military History Tour and Bourbon Tour is full. So there's still stuff to be done, still stuff that you can do, like the Battle of Richmond dinner. Everything on here, though, you need to go ahead and get registered for now. because at June 1st you won't be able to. And also, they do have their merchandise page. Wanted me to remind everybody that merchandise page is up. You can get the official swag from the national reunion. So, but yeah, get registered.
I mailed my registration in today. I've pre-registered in Houston, but I
so
sent in the
happy I
rest
pre-registered.
today.
Yeah, I did mine a couple weeks ago online. And that is just so much. I thank God for everybody who has an online option.
Yes, that saved
yeah,
me. I got to do it a couple months ago.
We started doing that on the division end 2 years ago. And it is just so much. It's so much easier doing it that way. I mean, I still have a lot of. I've got like 12 checks I've got to go and put into the bank, but the online really helps. So, anyway, tonight is kind of a special night. It is the 162nd anniversary of the Battle of Chancellorsville. Normally, during the Chancellorsville portion of it, we focus on Jackson's end, but Charles, a couple months ago, had asked if he could come on and talk about. He had this topic he was really passionate about because he had an ancestor fight at the other half of Chancellorsville. There along what was Mary's Heights and Second Fredericksburg and stuff like that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Charles. And for those that don't know him, he'll introduce himself and we'll get into the topic.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all allowing me to be here tonight. I was kind of always wanting to come in and do a historical program. And, when I saw started putting together something on this the Second Fredericksburg, they call it, and nobody ever really hears much about Second Fredericksburg, but it is referred to that. But it was part of the overall Chancellorsville campaign, and so because my ancestor was there, and I said the date was coming up, I said, well, let me see if I can put something together, and I'm.
I mean, you had multiple ancestors there.
Well, yeah, you're right. But I'll focus on one in particular because it significantly changed his life.
Yeah.
So that's just something I wanted to share, and I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to come on and be on SCV Chat to share it with everybody. So I guess we can, but it's 163 years.
63. I did my math
to the date. That's yesterday. May 3rd was the big date. But still, that it still bled into May 4th and May 5th, and those are the dates more that I'm focusing in on. So we all know fairly well the action that took place around Chancellorsville proper, May 3rd, 1863. That's where the Jackson's flank attack and everything, and just everybody knows about that. But so everybody knows about that, so much so that the action 10 miles to the east of Fredericksburg receives little, if any, coverage. Now, it has been covered. There are some great books out there, and like I said, I don't go into a whole lot of detail in this presentation, but I just kind of wanted to give people an idea about what was going on at the 10 miles east of Chancellorsville, on the same ground where there was a lot of fighting going on back in December '62. So I wanted to share the other side of Chancellorsville, the title of my program, Second Fredericksburg and Salem Church, namely because, again, we're here at the 163rd anniversary of that fighting on the grounds just west of Fredericksburg, but also because of my familial connections to that fighting, which I'll share toward the end of the program. So go ahead and pull up the visual 2, the map of the Chancellorsville campaign, and you'll see everything. Jackson's flank attack is over there to the left of the map, but the fighting that I'm going to be discussing is where you see Early's name and Sedgwick there in the city of Fredericksburg. So that's where my focus is going to be. So the Second Battle of Fredericksburg was fought May 3rd and 4th, 1863, and was part of the Chancellorsville campaign. While Union General Joseph Hooker in the Army of the Potomac engaged General Lee in the Army of Northern Virginia, about 10 miles to the west near Chancellorsville, the 5th and 6th Corps under Union General John Sedgwick were ordered to cross the Rappahannock, I'll get it out, and attack at Fredericksburg on Lee's right flank. So Hooker's plan was to force an already undermanned Lee to shift troops to his right and weakening his defenses, and hoping that would lead Lee to have to retreat. By the time the cautious Sedgwick was in position, however, Stonewall Jackson had outflanked the Union right, and it was Hooker, not Lee, who ended up getting reeling back. So Union General Sedgwick finally did charge up Marie's Heights, where the previous December the Union Army had under General Burnside had so terribly been defeated by our Confederate troops at the Stone Wall and the Sunken Road there. But this time it was a smaller contingent of Confederates under General Jubal Early that held on for a short time before giving way. When Sedgwick failed to press on his victory there at the Stone Wall, Lee was able to reinforce the line and attacking at Salem Church on May 3rd, and then eventually Banks Ford on May 4th. And then on May 5th, Sedgwick retreated across the Rappahannock River, followed shortly by Hooker. So with our visual of General Lee there. And note, and kind of something of interest, people don't realize that. So on the field there, Lee had 3 divisions at his disposal: Lafayette McLaws, Richard Anderson, and Jubal Early. McLaws and Anderson both belonged to the Confederate First Corps, but that corps commander was in Southeast Virginia at that time with his other 2 divisions on a foraging mission. So Lee was serving as a de facto commander on the field at that time. So visual 4. So this is one of the markers that you will find on the battlefield there near Fredericksburg. Just wanted to share that with you. So we'll go in there. There are certain phases, and I'll talk about them in each phase. So there was the breakthrough at Marie's Heights. So we remember, in Fredericksburg in December 1862. We totally obliterated any offensive measures that were attempted against the stone wall at Marie's Heights. But in this case, we didn't have near the numbers. So there was the initial Union attacks as part of the Second Fredericksburg were on May 3rd, and they were actually at first stalled by canals and heavy artillery fire against approaching Union troops. So General Sedgwick, he was the Union commander. We'll pull his picture up. We'll give him a little plug there. But Sedgwick moved his forces across the Rappahannock into Fredericksburg during the dawn of May 3rd, uniting with Gibbon's division, which had crossed the river just before dawn. So Sedgwick originally planned to attack the ends of Marie's Heights, but a canal and a stream blocked the Union forces. Sedgwick's opponent, former West Point classmate, General Early, visual 6, please. He had only with him roughly 10 to 12,000 troops and 46 pieces of artillery. He disposed them in such a way as to give himself the greatest possible strength on his flanks, where he expected Sedgwick to attack in force. Only 2 Mississippi regiments, the 18th and the 21st Mississippi, under the command of Brigadier General William Barksdale. There he is. There's General Barksdale. So that roughly was about 1,200 men and 8 guns defended the center of Marie's Heights. Early's 4 remaining Louisiana regiments, which included my great-great-great-grandfather, and General Cadmus Wilcox's brigade from General Anderson's division covered the northern flank. So there was fighting there, and then just a little bit of something of interest. So they had what they called the accidental scout. So there was a brief truce to gather wounded there in front of the stone wall, and during that time, Union forces actually noticed a weak point in the Confederate flank. And so Sedgwick decided to launch an attack on the Confederate center at the Heights, which was manned by Barksdale's brigade with John Newton's division. This attack was defeated, but ultimately soldiers of the 7th Massachusetts caught a glimpse of the Confederate right flank and thought it looked unprotected. And one of their officers, and I kind of mentioned it, but this is where leading up to the truce, one of their officers requested a brief truce to gather the wounded, and without consulting his brigade commander, Colonel Thomas Griffin of the 18th Mississippi granted it, and that allowed the Union soldiers to actually get a glimpse of the Confederate line a little bit more closely than they probably should have. So based on that, and we'll visual 8, second Fredericksburg battle map. And this covers just a good bit of it there, but you'll see at the top of the screen, you'll kind of look for the where Sedgwick, and then that major blue arrow, that was the attack on the center of the Confederate line at the Sunken Road, or the stone wall. So around 11 a.m., Union regiments of the 5th Wisconsin and the 6th Maine stormed the stone wall, and unlike the previous December, they were able to break through the line, capturing the Heights in roughly 15 minutes of intense combat. Sedgwick eventually launched another attack against the flank and Barksdale's front using elements of all 3 6th Corps divisions, which pushed the Confederate forces off the ridge, capturing some artillery and the 18th and 21st Mississippi infantry regiments. And I've got a visual of the 18th Mississippi's battle flag there. So during the Battle of Second Fredericksburg on May 3rd, the 18th Mississippi Infantry, as I said, defended those heights. And during that fighting, they ended up suffering 25 men killed and 43 men wounded. And, the regiment at that point was commanded by Colonel Thomas Griffin. And the line held for most of the day, but was eventually overwhelmed by Union forces. And unfortunately, during that battle, among the losses was Colonel Griffin, Lieutenant Colonel Luce, and 226 survivors were actually captured there at the stone wall. Also, Major James Campbell of the 18th Mississippi was mortally wounded during that action. So during the fighting there at the wall, the first men to mount the stone wall were from the 5th Wisconsin. And I'm just going to throw in there a picture of the 5th Wisconsin's colors. That's their actual flag. And also the 6th Maine. And after they broke across the wall there, Barksdale retreated to Lee's Hill, where he attempted to make another stand, but he was again forced to retreat southward. And the next couple of visuals are actually the famous picture that you always see. And, I always assumed it was from the battle in December, but this was actually taken after the fighting on May 3rd, after that battle there. So that's the fighting, or a post picture of the fighting there at Marie's Heights. And also another picture of a destroyed Confederate caisson was also taken after the fighting there. So show you a little bit of the aftermath there. So eventually there was after this takeover on the wall, there was actually a stalling, thanks to the quick thinking of Brigadier General Cadmus Wilcox, what they call Wilcox's Stand. And I got a picture of General Cadmus Wilcox coming up next. There he is. Quite debonair with that mustache, looking sharp.
Looks like Herman.
Huh?
Looks like Herman White.
He's sure. Now that you mentioned that, I hadn't even thought about that. Yep. So when Wilcox, he realized that the heights were lost, so he ended up performing. Thankfully, a brilliant delaying action along the Orange Plank Road, and this forced Sedgwick to deploy for battle multiple times, and it actually slowed down his advance of Early's Barksdale, the remaining troops of Barksdale, and whatever Confederate troops retreated in the face of Sedgwick's troops there. So it's both Sedgwick and Early reacted to the Union victory at Fredericksburg. Wilcox independently moved his brigade from their position near Taylor Hill to block the Plank Road to the west. Wilcox knew that he would not be able to stop the Federal advance, but he hoped at least to delay Sedgwick's movements as much as he could. He staged several delaying actions while falling back to the west along the Plank Road, ending at a location at Salem Church. So his plan worked because while he stalled the movement of the 6th Corps, Lee's reinforcements under Major General Lafayette McLaws, and we'll bring up McLaws' picture. There he is with his cape and everything. People still wear capes? Is that
no, but they should come back in style.
His troops, McLaws, arrived as reinforcements at Salem Church. So in this fighting, Confederate casualties totaled 700 men and 4 cannon. Early withdrew his division 2 miles to the south, while Wilcox withdrew westward, slowing Sedgwick's advance. When he learned of the Confederate defeat, Lee, he started moving 2 divisions east to stop Sedgwick. And this is, and I'll just kind of go off course here a little bit because as I did the research, I just found something a little bit interesting, and it kind of makes you think about, today's use of social media and the media to kind of bash other people, and I didn't do it, you did it, but so this is just a little bit of tidbit of information I wanted to throw into the presentation tonight. But so following this campaign, General Early became embroiled in an argument with General Barksdale over what Barksdale considered a slight to his brigade in a newspaper to the I think it was the Richmond. Trying to think of because I've picked it up on a secondary, but anyway, it was a Richmond newspaper. So again, Barksdale considered it a slight to his brigade in a newspaper letter that Early had written, and we'll bring up. That's actually the letter. Early's brigade in Marie's Heights. So Early wrote a letter kind of complaining about why things failed at Marie's Heights. And so McLaws ended up writing a letter of his own to defend his troops. And so we've also got, we might be able to pull up a copy of that, but either way. So let me kind of touch. So, this whole fighting at 2nd Fredericksburg, which is one of the reasons why I felt like it was a good program to give. The passage of time and the magnitude of the Confederate victory at Chancellorsville, basically rendered 2nd Fredericksburg a historical footnote to most analysts and historians. But to the participants, it was it was significant. A very important part of the Chancellorsville campaign. Hooker believed that Sedgwick's decision to assault Marie's Heights contributed greatly to the unraveling of the entire Union campaign, while some Southerners grumbled that the loss of the position did no credit to Confederate arms. So in that time, hyperactuated by questions of personal honor, perhaps no figure on either side of the conflict took such an active role in shaping historical memory as General Early. He was the antebellum lawyer was as aggressive on the page as he was on the battlefield in the decades to come. many a luckless opponent would discover that Early's words could do even more lasting damage than his men's rifle had. Though the fighting along the Rappahannock had scarcely ended and the Federals on the opposite bank still constituted great danger, Early actually took advantage of the proximity of the Richmond press to transfer any of the blame to someone other than himself. But in Barksdale, however, he had met his equal. Barksdale was a former newspaper editor in Mississippi and a member of Congress. And he was a combative Mississippian, and he was no stranger to feuding in print. So he was not a coward. He was not cowed by Early's superior rank, nor did he feel himself disadvantaged at having to defend himself in a Virginia broadcast. And he basically took Early's fight on and wanted to follow up himself. So following their appearances in the Daily Richmond Enquirer, both letters were immediately reprinted in other city papers. Yet no second volley was loosed. Perhaps higher authorities intervened, or perhaps preparations for what would become the Gettysburg campaign left no time for further interscene carping. It is possible, though highly doubtful, that Early was duly chastened by the reply. Whatever the reason, he uncharacteristically let someone else have the last word. And basically, General Lee put an end to their barbing in the local newspapers. But I must say, I did notice that Barksdale's final comment, I think, sealed the deal, that he made it clear how he felt about the attack on his troops. So he ended up, the end of his letter, he ended up saying, "My brigade needs no defense at my hands. Its reputation, won upon many battlefields, is well established. And this communication is not written for that purpose." And he's referring to, that's the tail end of his letter responding to General Early. "This communication is not written for that purpose, but to correct erroneous impressions which General Early's publication was calculated to make." So I thought that was a pretty good response by General Barksdale to the newspaper attack by General Early. So again, Lee put an end to that. But getting back to the numbers, so I mentioned the casualties on the Confederate side on that May 3rd fighting. Sedgwick lost 1,100 men during the engagement. At first he started to pursue Early's division, but then followed the orders he received the previous day, and he started west along Plank Road towards Hooker's army to connect up with them in Chancellorsville. And Gibbon's division was left to Fredericksburg to guard the city. So all this fighting, as McLaws had got around Salem Church, this is where the fighting shifted to. And we'll go to visual 17. So this is a historical marker there located near Salem Church that you would see if you were able to visit that area. And they actually kind of superimpose a modern day map there to kind of give you a better visual where you are there. So May 3rd in the evening, Sedgwick finally reached Salem Church, and of course he was still following Wilcox, who was putting up those efforts to stall him. And then, of course, once he reached Salem Church, he found out that McLaws had arrived to reinforce. So a savage fight erupted around the small brick church. And actually, the walls of the church still bear bullet scars today. And we'll pull up a picture of it, the actual Salem Church, which still stands today. And there it is. So, again, Sedgwick only expected to find Wilcox in front of him. So his first division, Sedgwick's first division under Brigadier General William Brooks, he deployed across the Plank Road to assault the Confederate line at Salem Church. And the Union line moved forward, pushing Wilcox's skirmishers back and captured the Confederate soldiers. Actually, they were stationed inside Salem Church, but then they ran into McLaws's troops and forced the Yankees into a heavy fight there. Eventually, a Confederate counterattack successfully broke the Union momentum, and they recaptured Salem Church and forced General Brooks's division back to the main 6th Corps position. We'll pull up the period map, and these are interesting. I kind of enjoyed finding these, but they, these are period maps of the fighting, and you see Salem Church right there in the middle. But again, that picture is labeled "Plan of the Battle of Salem Church" or Salem Heights, Virginia, and just shows where the lines of battle were at that point. So the actions of Wilcox and McLaws successfully prevented Sedgwick from making it west to hook up with Hooker. How about that? With the play on words. It forced his 6th Corps to eventually reposition itself into a stronger but defensive position. So on May 3rd and May 4th, Sedgwick was not receiving any clear information or orders from Hooker's headquarters to the west. And so he was stalled in his position where he tried to maintain it. With the main Union Army digging into defensive positions at Chancellorsville after May 3rd fighting, General Lee turned his attention towards attacking and destroying this isolated 6th Corps. Lee directed Early and McLaws to coordinate an attack on Sedgwick for the morning of May 4th and sent more reinforcements under Major General Richard Anderson towards Salem Church. We'll pull up visual 20. And again, that's showing, and I think the thing to focus on is, so there was the main fighting, but if you'll start to look up in the, kind of like in the upper center, you might be able to read it. That was where eventually Sedgwick started retreating toward that Rappahannock River, and our Confederate troops finally started taking the field. So there was what they called the May 4th encirclement happened next. So by the next morning, Lee had arrived with more reinforcements. And Sedgwick found himself inside a 3-sided box with his back to the Rappahannock River. And Lee intended for Early and McLaws to attack the Union or the 6th Corps together in an attempt to either destroy Sedgwick or force him from the field. Early advanced his division up the Telegraph Road toward Fredericksburg and easily reoccupied Lee's Hill and Marie's Heights by 8 a.m. Early's movement cut Sedgwick off from Fredericksburg and General Gibbons stationed within the city. With Confederate forces on both sides, McLaws to the west and Early to the east, Sedgwick repositioned into a tighter defensive position, protecting his retreat point at Scott's Ford. So about 11 a.m., Early tested the Union position with an attack on the Union left, held by part of General Albion Howe's division, and there was a sharp skirmish occurred, but the Union line held, and Early knew that he needed to get together with McLaws and try to coordinate something to make before making a second attempt. But unfortunately, McLaws hesitated to attack Sedgwick and waited until Anderson arrived with reinforcements. And then at that point, General Lee actually arrived personally to oversee the May 4th engagement. And a little afternoon, he very disappointed to find that his planned coordinated attack had not happened, and McLaws had not determined the exact position of the enemy. From what I understand, some of the reading, Lee showed how angry he could be when his orders were not followed and things didn't quite work out the way he wanted them to at this particular point. So he quickly directed 3 brigades under Anderson to a position south of the Plank Road, and they linked forces with Early and McLaws and rode towards Fredericksburg to consult with Early. And so we'll pull up 21, the overall campaign. So this shows you, so we're looking to the west. That's where things ended up on May 4th. This is May 4th through the 6th, but so how things ended up closer to Chancellorsville. But here's that that kind of like if you look over here to the right, the campaign that we're discussing, the part of the campaign we're discussing, you'll see how Sedgwick basically put himself into a U and tried to defend himself against attacks, and eventually started making his retreat across the Rappahannock River. And I think I've got another visual showing the horseshoe there, and all those arrows show attacks by Confederate forces against Sedgwick's defensive positions. So that ended up leading to the retreat. After the Confederate assault at 5:30 p.m., Sedgwick withdrew his forces under the cover of darkness across Banks Ford. So while Lee's May 4th assault didn't end up as successfully as he hoped, in basically destroying and capturing Sedgwick's corps, it did contracted the 6th Corps' defensive line and convinced Sedgwick that he needed to get out of Dodge. He had not heard anything from Hooker. He decided that he needed to see about his own troops, and that's what he did. About 6:45 p.m., he ended up ordering his corps to prepare for a withdrawal, and had Generals Newton and Benham, Benham of the Engineer Brigade, set up defenses at Scott's Ford. The construction of a second pontoon bridge started in the afternoon, was still underway, and Sedgwick began sending his non-combatants and wounded across ahead of at least one of those pontoon bridges. Now, Sedgwick attempted to mask the withdrawal of his corps. He kept skirmishes out as long as he could and ordered his men to move quietly. He also had the 2 bridges. The second one was actually completed after 10 p.m. They were covered in dirt. Oh, they covered the road, the bridges in dirt and sod to muffle the noises of the retreating men across, as well as the horses. So Sedgwick withdrew Brooks's 1st Division first. He pulled the regiments back to a defensive position at Scott's Ford. As the Union men quietly moved, sporadic skirmishing broke out along the lines as Confederates aimed towards what they guessed were retreating Federals, and the Union returned fire in the dark. Newton's 3rd Division also began moving back to the position at Scott's Ford, keeping their picket lines in place as the main line withdrew. On Sedgwick's far right, Burnham's Light Division found themselves isolated from the rest of the Corps as the forces to their left withdrew. And in the dark, officers of the 6th Maine suddenly came upon the approaching battle line of Wilcox's Alabama regiments. The encounter was so unexpected that more than 150 Yankees surrendered instantly, while the rest of the division fled to the rear. So as the Confederate line of Wilcox and Kershaw's men took position in what had been Union earthworks, Confederate artillery tried to fire on Scott's Ford. So the last Federal troops to hold their position was Howe's 2nd Division. Howe was not immediately in favor of withdrawing because his troops had fought so hard to hold and protect that position. There was also growing tension between Howe and Sedgwick over actions of May 3rd. Sedgwick ordered Howe to hold his position for an hour longer and then retreat to the defensive position at Scott's Ford. They held their position as a rear guard as other troops withdrew, and then about 10:30 p.m., the second pontoon bridge was completed, and Howe was able to get his troops across. So hearing that Sedgwick had been repulsed, Hooker abandoned the entire campaign, recrossing the main body of the Union Army on the night of May 5th and into May 6th to the north bank of the Rappahannock River, back towards the Federal camp at Falmouth. So just to kind of go back, so the fighting at Salem Church ended up leading the church to be used as a hospital. And I've got a little picture there. This is another informative marker there at Salem Church, where it shows a lot of the wounded being treated and taken care of there on the grounds of Salem Church. So the wrap up and legacy. this fighting of 2nd Fredericksburg and Salem Church, the other side of the Chancellorsville campaign. Though it was a Union tactical victory at Fredericksburg, or 2nd Fredericksburg, it ended up as a strategic victory as it protected Lee's rear. The casualties in the 2-day fighting resulted in nearly 10,000. There were, let's see, so the number of troops, 3,500 Union casualties and 2,349 Confederate casualties. So at this point, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to, and what kind of led me to think about this being a good program to share with y'all was that my grandfather, my third great grandfather, Private Emile Simon Fontenot, was in the fighting there with the 6th Louisiana Infantry. So, and just I'll give you a bit of information more specifically about what the 6th Louisiana did. So, so they were there in all the fighting, but closer to the end, on May 5th, 1863, the 6th Louisiana was in the vicinity of Fredericksburg at the end of the campaign. And after several days of heavy fighting, the regiment was involved in the following actions. They were in a defensive position on May 3rd. They fought at the Battle of Salem Church on May 4th. And then the 6th Louisiana remained a part of Early's division, which was tasked at holding the Confederate lines against Sedgwick's troops. So by May 5th, following the retreat of the Union troops from Salem Church, the Louisiana Brigade was in that area. So during the multi-day campaign, basically April 30th to May 6th, the 6th Louisiana suffered significant losses, including 14 killed, 68 wounded, and 99 captured. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Hanlon was among those captured during the fighting. Toward the end of the campaign, as the primary Union force under General Hooker began its own withdrawal across the river, the 6th Louisiana and the rest of Hayes's Louisiana Brigade regrouped and eventually returned to their original camps near Hamilton's Crossing. So I wanted to bring up, and you had brought it up early, but we can bring it up again. So I wanted to show Emile's wounding card. So this is in the record for my ancestor, for Emile Fontenot, where it shows that he was absent in August due to the wounding. And there's actually a little bit of a contradiction. They say he was either wounded on May 4th or May 5th. And because there was fighting in different areas, so we're talking Salem Church, and then there was a fighting north of Salem Church when Sedgwick was in his basically horseshoe defensive position. It's kind of hard for me to pinpoint exactly where Emile was wounded. But just the fact that he was wounded during that fighting is certainly very meaningful to me. But eventually he was transported to a hospital in Richmond. He stayed in a couple different hospitals. Actually, one of them was the Louisiana Hospital in Richmond. And during the last reunion there, I was the building that served as a Louisiana hospital at that time is actually still standing. So I was able to at least go stand on the outside of it because they were renovating the inside of it. But so he was in the hospital from May, and he ended up having an arm amputated, which I referenced. This campaign and his wounding altered the rest of his life. But he was discharged 11 months later. His record indicates he was medically discharged in April 1864. And fortunately for me, and I'd like to really know the story of how he made it back to Louisiana based on the time. You know, maybe he walked and maybe caught some rides here and there, but he was eventually able to make it back to the area where I live now, back to Grand Prairie, Louisiana by November 1864, and married my great-great-great-grandmother and had kids of his own. And here I am. And I'm actually pleased to point out that he's buried in the old Grand Prairie Cemetery, which is right behind my house. And I've got a picture of me at his, it should be me at his headstone there. Yeah. So, but that's my presentation. And, I hope y'all enjoyed it. Just like I said, just a little bit something different, stepping away from Chancellorsville proper to something that was still very important to how the Chancellorsville campaign ended up.
Yeah, I touched when I did my Barksdale talk a little bit of the press feud between him and Early post battle, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's just, and so many other press feuds happened. Davis and Beauregard, everything like that. That's just it's funny how 160 some odd years later we're still Southerners are still doing that, just with different types of media now.
That's right. That's right.
I always found it like weirdly soothing about Davis and Beauregard, because everybody knows I love Davis to death. And I was like, I wondered if Davis ever had to deal with anything. And me and Connor were talking, and he was like, funny you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of little conflicts, and but like I said, that one interesting with Barksdale and Early, how they took to the papers to defend their honor and everything, and then it ended up being in I think it was I keep forgetting I think the main one is the Richmond Dispatch.
Yeah,
and then eventually other papers picked it up, and so it's just funny how that stuff kind of played out. It's just like the whole, when that stuff happens today, it's just like that. People use the media to just try to slander or attack others or defend themselves in one way or the other.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a unique side story.
Yeah. David wants to know, is there any particular books or any sources that you used putting this together? He thought it was a good presentation.
Yeah, there was one book, and and for some reason I didn't put it in. Let me see, I can find it real quick. This should be able I should be able to find it for you, but there was one definitely a really good book that I would recommend. Let's see, let me find it. But I piecemealed a lot of the information together. Especially kind of looking for, I did a lot of searching for images, because I wanted to add some images to it and everything, and so I did a lot of piecemeal information, but I did come across some information. Let's see. Hold on. Let me find it here. And I'm sorry I didn't write the name of the book down, because I've kind of felt at one point I felt like I was kind of copying it, but that's why I kind of changed the topic or the title to my own. See if I can find it here, because it's a little bit of a similar title. Let's see. But I appreciate that. I'm glad you. Yeah, there it is. Chancellorsville's Forgotten Front. So that's why I kind of changed my title to The Other Side of Chancellorsville, which still is totally applicable. But but I referenced and I recommend Chancellorsville's Forgotten Front, The Battles of Second Fredericksburg and Salem Church by Mikowski, Chris Mikowski and Christopher White. So you might want to check that book out.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Jason Lloyd's been commenting in our Virginian, just talking about your ancestor being at Port Republic, and some other stuff. But happy to see him in there. One thing that
I just it went back down, but I did see something about the coaling. Can you put his comment?
Yeah, that was. Let me see if I could find it again. Yeah. So Jason, it's funny you should say that, and I'm thanks for bringing that up. But that is where my ancestor was first wounded. Emil was wounded on the coaling at Port Republic in June 1862. Yeah, well, and I was noticing in your email signature, has a quote from I can't remember, but dealing with that campaign.
How Taylor explained the that would be the I got that for you.
Come on, Mouse, where'd you go?
I said so. Yeah, it was actually the quote is by General Ewell's after action report after the Battle of Port Republic. He said, to General Richard Taylor and his Louisiana Brigade belongs the honor of deciding two battles, that of Winchester and this one, Port Republic. So, and again, that's where Emil was wounded the first time, and said he ended up making it back into the ranks, only to be wounded and eventually discharged after Second Fredericksburg.
Yeah, very, very interesting because like we've talked. Oh, the other one, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Carl does wear a cape when he cuts grass.
And when I kind of made that little joke, and I know I didn't do it, I didn't use the exact phrase, but it just made me think of the episode of Seinfeld where they see, I think it's who's the guy, basically the creator of Seinfeld, David.
Oh yeah.
I can't, but he basically was in an episode standing on the sidewalk wearing a cape, and Seinfeld and them make is he wearing a cape? And so that's kind of where I just took that little line from.
Yeah.
So good job, Carl. I'm glad to know you wear a cape.
Well, I'm glad he's wearing something when he cuts grass.
Yeah.
He could have commented a lot worse.
Yeah.
Wins or wins. That's where I'll draw the line on that one.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm sure Donette appreciates that too. Anyway, Charles, anything else you want to talk about before we pay the bills and sign off for the evening?
Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to do that. I would be remiss, and I'm hoping that just about everybody that's watching here tonight already knows by now that I am a candidate for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief at the elections in Lexington in July. And I just wanted to mention that. I know at the beginning of the program, Connor, you shared information about the reunion, that it's coming up quickly. It'll be here before we know it. I just want to encourage y'all, if you hadn't already, to register. During my campaign so far, I've received a lot of encouragement, a lot of endorsements, but honestly, the thing that counts is sending delegates to Lexington. And regardless of who your camp decides to cast ballots for, I highly encourage you to send delegates to Lexington. But again, as a candidate for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, I appreciate the opportunity to share that a little bit with you. As I've been on your show and a couple of the other podcasts as part of the SCV CHAT network. But please check out my website, LauretForDixie.com. And I'm glad to do this verbally. So again, my name ends with a T, but it's the T is silent. So it's Lauret, hence my Lauret for Dixie, or hip hip Lauret. But again, check out my website, LauretForDixie.com. And check out my platform. But I hope to see as many of you there as possible in Lexington, and just hope to see you there. And I appreciate the opportunity to share that, you guys.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So real quickly, Charles, we're going to go ahead and pull you off the screen. You can hang out if you want to. If you have to go, we understand. But we need to pay some bills really, really quickly.
Wait, I cut them off.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to say good night, everybody. Thank y'all for joining in, and I hope you enjoyed the program.
Oh, it was great, Charles. Thank you for being on.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night, Charles.
Well, we've heard how Moose is a poor, broke college student for several decades on this show, or it feels like, and we haven't even been on for a decade yet. But
Some of us take longer time.
Yeah, you can support him as he is a poor broke entrepreneur by joining our Patreon, scvchat.com. Go under the support us page. You'll find a link to our Patreon where you can feed a moose a corn dog for only $2.50 a month. If I didn't want to get the copyright strike, I'd play the Arms of the Angels song in the background, and
you know what? We can actually film a TikTok doing that. It's just me with like a corn dog.
Yeah. No.
Yes, Adam.
It's you standing outside of a window looking sad while Adam or Kayla eats the corn dog. That's the
Kayla would eat the corn dog just for the pure torture of me.
Yeah. But anyway, we have that level. We have our $10 SCV chat, real chat head level. You get a lovely sticker. Our $30 a month level where you get merch we don't even get. And our $80 a month level sponsorship program. So let's go ahead and talk about those sponsors right now while we're talking about them. So very first, I would be remiss to not mention Dr. Chris Cummins. Dr. Cummins is past surgeon-in-chief of the SCV. Excellent medical practitioner in the Oxford, Mississippi area. Definitely, if you can look at Moose and myself and tell that we don't eat the apples, so an apple a day keeps the doctor away or something like that. So we definitely need a doc, and we have a good one in Doc Cummins. So definitely give him a look, see if you're within the traveling area. Modern medicine with Southern hospitality. The address on the screen is wrong. He is currently at what address, Moose?
Let me pull it up. It's on
Heritage Drive in Oxford. I know that.
Oh, it is Heritage Drive, 111111. So it's 501 Heritage Drive, Suite 111.
So definitely give him a look, see if you need. Also, we have 31st Reg Engraving out there on the West Coast. Todd out there is doing all sorts of things. And, of course, with it being reunion season, you need auction items, door prize items, things like that. And look no further than 31st Reg Engraving. Anything from challenge coins to the lovely memorial wristbands to bottle openers and those awesome Jeff Davis earrings. Check out Todd with 31stRegEngraving.com. If you have an idea, he could probably do it for you.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, Beauregard's Tailor, which you need to update this one because Andrew is no longer doing reproduction uniforms. He is going mainly towards his historical themed shirts as well as reproduction of flags, stickers, things of that nature. But definitely give him a look. Beauregard'sTailor.shop. We actually have about 9 lapel pins of his that we will be giving out. We do a live stream every year after the national or after the oratory contest at the national reunion. So probably giving those out then. Who knows? And if we have a moose hunt, that may be the thing. Anyway.
No,
continuing on. Continuing on, we do have to thank our friends at the museum at Market Hall in Charleston, South Carolina, home of the Confederate Museum there since 1899. If the flag is out there open, which is usually Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. They have a great gift shop that you can buy online. Just scan that QR code or visit their website. Follow them on Facebook. Consider becoming a friend of the museum. Definitely worth it. Some of the things that you could see if you go there, swords, flags, uniforms, artillery, different personal artifacts, the giant life-size portrait of P.G. Beauregard that looks like Donald Sutherland, as well as other things. So give them a visit next time you are in Charleston. We appreciate Jill and everything that the ladies over there are doing to keep history alive, especially in such a busy area of Charleston. And of course, we'd be remiss without thanking the Sam Davis Home and Museum. Of course, Sam Davis, the boy martyr of the Confederacy, who was hung because he would not betray a friend. Definitely a wonderful area to visit. They have a feature film about Sam Davis's life, as well as you can visit the grave, the gift shop, the tour of the home, all sorts of things. top tip, give yourself at least 1.5 to 2 hours to fully enjoy your experience. It's in Smyrna, Tennessee, just a short drive away from national headquarters. So definitely visit them. Visit samdavishome.org for more information. samdavishome.org. And of course, we would be we can't forget that we're running a special on our t-shirts. Explain that special on that t-shirt, Moose.
Well, it would be my honor to. You have until July 5th to buy the South was right in 1861 because America was right in 1776 shirt for 15% off. That's right, 15% off. All you have to do is use the promo code 250. If you don't know why we're using the promo code 250, I cannot help you.
Yeah. But Doc Cummins can.
Yes, he can. But also, we want to see everybody having these available for July 4th, get people interested in our organization. But also, I'd love to see a lot of people wearing this at Reunion. I bought mine. I even accidentally bought it at full price, and I can't afford that.
I bought mine at full price.
So, yeah, I want to see everybody wearing this July 4th, and of course, at our national reunion in Kentucky in July. Again, it's a great conversation starter. You'll get a lot of people talking and asking why you even think that. And that's when you can talk about the SCV. So there's multiple reasons to get this shirt.
Yeah, and like you just said, it's a conversation starter. People all the time ask, why are you here? Why are you doing this? Explain that, and other things. You never know who you can touch. Also, it helps advertise the show. Yes. Anyway, guys, Moose, what are you doing tomorrow night?
Well, I think I'm going to kick my boots off after another long work day that I'm not getting paid for and actually putting more money in by detoxing and watching Tennessee Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Confederate Standard Time.
Well, that'll be good. And then Wednesday, if you're not at Divine Services, of course, you have Look Around Florida with Sean McFall. Mm-hmm. And on Thursday, what do you have game plan there, Moose? Look Around or is it Commanders?
It's actually scheduled to be Commanders Comments will be this Thursday. So make sure to check that out. We have, of course, our Commander-in-Chief, Donnie Kendi, on to give you an update on what National's been doing. And there is a lot I can tell you from this weekend. By the way, you can go watch the pilgrimage on our YouTube page right now. We broadcast that live. So make sure to make some plans to watch that and tune in Thursday.
And then Friday, David had to leave, but just check the Douglas Southall Freeman group, see if they're doing anything. Just a couple of quick little things from here on chat before we run off. We are, of course, getting close to national reunion. Only a couple of like 70, not 72. I'll find it again.
We are getting close. They did want to mention, which I am getting mine, these beautiful challenge coins. They are numbered. So make sure
Forgot to mention that they're numbered. Yeah, 72 days. So remember that as we get closer to that, as we're getting closer to travel and everything, our scheduling kind of changes and stuff. So yeah. Anyway, we appreciate y'all tuning in. I've got to run right now. So I'm going to let Moose do the, in the words of the late and great Harold Philpott, no Fumart in the elevator and all that stuff. So anyway, I'll see you guys next Monday, potentially.
So it was great to have Connor on, and of course, Charles on to talk about the battle. Always enjoy learning. So I want to thank Charles for coming on for that. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to share this episode so we can get the most reach we can. More people seeing the calls is better. And again, we cannot do this without the support of our lovely Patreon scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Make sure if you want to join them to go check out SCV Chat on Patreon or go to scvchat.com. In the words of the late, great Harold Philpott, remember, chat heads, new Fumar in the elevator and rare frop. Good night, everybody.